Okay, first off, I have to say that I was supposed to do this BBC 2 days ago. But as everything else in this universe and beyond, especially at Sravasti Abbey, things change. Okay, so, so we're going to look at what happened in history on May 10th, which was 2 days ago. May 10th, 1773, the English Parliament passed the Tea Act, which taxed all tea in the colonies. This led directly to the American Revolution. See, it seems that England wanted to make sure that America, or the colonies as they were called, understood that the Parliament had the ability to tax anything they wanted. Colonies didn't appreciate that very much at all, because at the time, 60 to 70% of the tea being drunk in the colonies was actually smuggled in from the Dutch. Okay, but the East India Tea Company was losing money because nobody in the colonies was drinking their tea. So that's why they put the tax on there, which actually ended up lowering the prices, but the colonists weren't fooled. They said, no, this isn't going to work. We ain't going to accept your being able to tax us without our having representation. So 6 months later, there was a tea party in Boston Harbor where $1,700,000 worth of tea was thrown overboard. Because of this, England decided to send General Thomas Gage to the colonies. He decided to take liberties, kind of. He sent his redcoats out to capture all the guns in Concord, which led directly to the shot heard round the world, quote unquote, which was the start of the American Revolution. So, now, during that war, the American Revolution, there was 82,500 American citizens killed, but most of those died by disease. Okay, so it was only like 20% of them were actually killed in combat. And 78,200 British subjects were killed. Most of those died from the disease, not actual combat. But those figures do not include civilian casualties or the Native Americans who did that. Okay, so that was one thing. 1773, the English Parliament passed the Tea Act. But that also led to the Great American Experiment, which was the United States of America, which is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Never before seen in the world. Of course, this is something that the President and Congress seem to have forgotten to this day. May 10th, 1908, the first Mother's Day observance took place during a church service in Grafton, West Virginia. Today is Mother's Day. This is just a service announcement. Okay. May 10th, 1940, Hitler's armies invaded Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, and France. And within 30 days, France had surrendered, and Hitler owned everything in Europe or was allied with the people who were in Europe. So we all know that an estimated 70 to 85 million people perished, or about 3% of the world population during that war. Now, up until May 10th, unless you lived in Poland, Denmark, or Norway, the war just didn't seem real because there was no fighting going on. It had started September 1st the year before, and until then it was called the phony war by the people in France and the people in England because there was no fighting going on. But he invaded on that day, and we all know what happened. But also on that day, Neville Chamberlain resigned as Prime Minister of England, and Sir Winston Churchill replaced him, which was a very good thing for the entire world, because Winston Churchill was basically the only one who stood up to Hitler and said, this isn't going to happen. But one does wonder what would have happened if Churchill hadn't become Prime Minister on this day back then. May 10th, 1962, Marvel Comics publishes the first issue of The Incredible Hulk. Insignificant? Maybe. But as of right now, Marvel Studios, which is a direct product of that, is worth $10,527,843,932. Plus, they have about 9 or 10 more films getting ready to be made to make more money. May 10th, 1994, Nelson Mandela was sworn in as South Africa's first black president. He was put in jail because he objected to apartheid in South Africa. Whenever you look at South Africa, apartheid is a big part of it. Apartheid means apartness. Basically what happened in 1948, the white government there decided to separate the blacks from the whites. So the whites owned about 80% of the land, the blacks owned 20% of the land. There was about 20% of the population was white, 80% was black. Basically what they did, they designated 10 different areas, and although the blacks were assigned to one of those areas, they said, you are now of the Xhosa tribe, you go live in that area. Of course, they did not get the best land. They got some of the worst lands available. 1950, the government started taking away the colored people's right to vote, until in 1969, the only people allowed to vote were the whites. Again, they only were 20% of the people. So, fortunately, in 1989, F.W. de Klerk became president of South Africa. Despite his initial reputation as a conservative, de Klerk moved decisively towards negotiations to end the political stalemate in the country, in other words, apartheid. In his opening address to Parliament on the 2nd of February 1990, de Klerk announced that he would repeal discriminatory laws and lift the 30-year ban on leading anti-apartheid groups. De Klerk also made his first public commitment to release Nelson Mandela, to return press freedom, and to suspend the death penalty. Media restrictions were lifted and political prisoners not guilty of common law crimes were released. And on 11 February 1990, Nelson Mandela was released from Victor Verster prison after more than 27 years behind bars. So apartheid was dismantled in a series of negotiations from 1990 to 91, which culminated in the transitional period which resulted in the country's 1994 general election, the first held in South Africa, held with universal suffrage. And again, Nelson Mandela was sworn in on this date as South Africa's first black president, a very historic date. 1993, de Klerk and Mandela jointly were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for their work in the peaceful termination of apartheid. So what does all this have to do with the Dharma? Everything can be used to enhance our practice of the Dharma. We can look and say, yeah, these were world-changing events, but most events that take place are not world-changing events. But they can be life-changing events. The actions you do today may not have the same impact as these events. But what about the person standing next to you? How do your actions affect them? And what about your future self? How will the actions that you are involved in ripen? And for this reason, and just because it's the right thing to do, you need to make sure that all of your actions are ethical and kind. Okay. May 10th, 2016, NASA announced that its Kepler mission had verified 1,284 new planets. This was the largest finding of planets to date. You see, this is good news, because it means that it's possible for human beings to have a new place to go to if they don't stop screwing up the only home that we have. Granted, we don't have any way to get there right yet, but the possibilities are endless. And this may be the most important event to date. Who knows? So have a good day.